So, Coach, just early thoughts on Kentucky, watching them on film. Like, what do they do well?
Everything. Really have enjoyed studying them. For sure, the prettiest offense in the country. Analytically, they're the third best offense. But just how they play, very unique, dissimilar to any team in the SEC in the time that we've been here. Easy to see why Coach has had such success and has such notoriety relative to his offense. Really, really have enjoyed studying. I don't know that we know how to slow it down or stop it. Not many teams have had much success with that, but yeah, they're not only talented and skilled, that's easy to figure out, but their style of play is very distinct, and you have to make a lot of decisions just on how you're going to try to slow them down. And yeah, it's been really good. Our guys have been tremendous. The staff has been studying long before I got to it Saturday night, but yeah, we've had a lot of work to do on a quick turnaround and still have some more to do, but have really enjoyed studying them.
How will it be seeing Jaxson Robinson again, and this time kind of game planning against him? What do you see, I guess, in him and the kind of end of his collegiate career now?
A beautiful kid. COVID was a tough experience for everybody, including him. Still have great relationships with his parents. And we've done this before. He was at Arkansas when he left here, and so he's a really good player and was a really good player when he was here. And I think Texas A&M, Arkansas, BYU, Kentucky, you could argue he's been really good to close down his career even at BYU. And he's a big part of what they're doing.
And I don't know if you have really any history with, or Mark Pope, but just kind of what do you know about kind of his coaching and just what he's been able to do in his first year so far at Kentucky?
I've never even met Coach. I know he means a lot to the University of Kentucky and is a part of their lore and the success that they've had. I know he's incredibly smart as a coach and obviously incredibly smart as a person. Was at Columbia Medical School and decided he didn't want to be a doctor, but everything you've read about him is what I've read about him, but I don't have any other knowledge other than the last day and a half studying his team.
Buzz, it's all been talked about over and over what the grind of the SEC is. But what's it like when you're actually in it? When you start off with a big celebrated game against a rival, then number 17 team on the road, and after that now you got to go to Kentucky. I mean, it's.
Well, it's every part of any challenge you could possibly think of. I'm grateful for the opportunity just to be able to experience it. I think our guys have, for sure, an attitude of gratitude. They're aware of the success of this league. Even the schedule we played prior to this, they're aware of all of the things that have led to this particular season. And as you mentioned, I mean, the things you just mentioned, that happened in the first week of conference play. And so how can we cleanse ourselves of the results, of the preparation, of the exhaustion, of the decision fatigue, of the mental fatigue that comes from even having a chance to be in any of these games, and then on a quick turnaround, do it again, whether it's at home or on the road. I think in some ways what'll be interesting, to your point on the thinnest of margins within this league, is there's probably over time as the weeks unfold, there's probably going to be some wins and some losses that will be distinguishing decisions, and it'll be based on how you handle the volatility of the league. And I don't think that that's just players. I think that that's coaches too. You can look across the country, specific players, specific coaches, after 1 week in their conference race. I know we're a little behind in the SEC with only 18 games, but there are some teams that are in their third week of conference play, and it started in the third week of December. And you can already see some some emotional outbursts that are like, yeah, I agree, but I don't know if you can do that in the first and second week of January, because that's happening publicly, what's happening privately. And so I think the consistency of your character, the consistency of your work, the consistency of your preparation, I think those are the things that you have to stay loyal to, true to, as best you can.
If I'm not mistaken, this is the lowest 3-point field goal defense percentage you've had at any stop in your career. Is that X's and O's changes? Is that some talent? A little bit of it. What's kind of gone into the success that y'all have had there?
Probably a little bit of both, Travis. I do think that we have good players, and I think we have probably a collection of players who take great pride in defending. And I think the accumulation of the reps of our specific defense is probably a part of that. And then as you've watched, because I know you're studying different parts of it, but as the years have unfolded in running Seattle 3, that's what we call our defense, we've made changes to certain parts of it. And what has transpired specifically thus far this year is the original parts we still know and we still practice, but then some of the tweaks that we've made on the weak side, some of the tweaks that we've made in the ball screen coverage, we practice those tweaks too. And so it's still the same defense. It's just within a portion of the defense relative to the opponent, we're doing some different things. And I think a little bit last week, for sure tomorrow. Some of those tweaks are relative to our personnel too. Saturday, a high volume of threes. I think 58% of their field goal attempts were from three, I believe. They shot 35% on that 58%. We did a really good job considering the talent and the pace at the rim versus Alabama. Tomorrow's opponent is different, still fast, not quite as fast, but nearly everything they do is 5 out. And so now that changes your weak side. But a lot of times the ball stays in the channel, so there's not a weak side. And that's why they are hard to guard, a portion. But that's also why they've had such success. But specific to the 3-point field goal percentage defense, I think it's probably a combination of both. The maturity, the tweak, and the talent.
I know when you go in and you make those tweaks and you say, like, hopefully this is going to make us a little more successful.
Right.
But then when you look before last week, 28% the teams are shooting. I mean, do you kind of get to sit back and go, okay, well, that worked pretty well, at least for the first stretch.
Yeah, and I think some of it is similar to you guys' questions on free throws. Hey, we missed 20. Try not to do that again, Buzz, because I know you're the free throw coach, and we're going to fire you. Look, I understand. But the evidence says that in our 10 high major games, we were shooting 75%, which is the best we have ever done since we've been here. So do I think it's an anomaly? I pray that it is. The evidence, the data suggests that it is. And I think some of it is words we use within the program. What is our foundation as it relates to these Seattle 3 concepts? What's the foundation, not the tweak? What were the original foundational blocks? They're going to shoot more threes. Last year against Alabama, they shot 71 balls and 41 were from three. So we always say plus 10. So going into tomorrow's game, I believe Kentucky is missing 18 threes per game. Well, I hope they miss more, but we tend to believe that defensively they're going to shoot more. So it's a little bit of we don't bet. But if we were betting, we're just betting the odds of when the ball's on the ground, we know we're going to force this type of shot. And so now how can we structure ourselves when the ball has been shot and it's in the air to be in a better position from a defensive rebounding standpoint? In the last 3.5 weeks, our program has improved over 100 teams as it relates to defensive rebounding. Why did we lose against Alabama? Pick one. We missed 20 free throws, but we attempted 48 in the top 3 ever in Reed Arena. I would bet that every time. Do you want 48 free throw attempts? Please. Okay, on the other end, they offensive rebounded 51% of their misses, the highest yield rate we have ever given up since we've been here. Do I think that we're good at defensive rebounding? I don't. Do I think that we've made strides and we're in the average category? For sure. Would I have thought that it would be a 2-possession game when we missed 20 free throws, attempting 48, and their pace of play, their propensity to shoot threes, that when they shoot it and miss, they're going to get it back half the time. And in the game, you're still going to shoot more balls than they do. And you're going to make more free throws than they did. They beat us. But if you only are talking about that number, that it was a 2-possession game, to me is an anomaly. And so I think that's probably as succinct as I want to be.
Zhuric's really stepped up big on the offensive end the last 2 games, 24 against Alabama. Just now that you've gotten a chance to look at the tape, what'd you make of his shot selection in particular against Alabama and going forward with that?
I thought it was just okay. I think specific to free throws, he attempted 10 free throws. Tremendous. Whether you're a ball guard, it doesn't matter your position. If in a 40-minute college game you shoot 10 free throws, that probably means you're drawing more fouls than any other player in the gym. That was not the case because Gochi drew more fouls. But if you are drawing fouls at that sort of rate as a ball guard, it probably means you are doing an incredible job of forcing rotation. And so when they play you as such, that becomes harder and harder to do because they're saying, just shoot it in front of me. And I think the thing that we've talked with Zoo about since he came back from injury is, can you make real-time decisions at the pace that you're best? And the pace that he's best at is jet fast. 84% of our shots touched the paint against Alabama. That led to the 48 free throw attempts. Was his shot selection, do you want to shoot 24 balls to score 25 points? No. Do I think any of them, I would say as a coach, man, that's bad? No, I think when your leading scorer's not playing, you're probably going to accumulate a different shot diet than typical. And sticking up for Zoo, he took a lot of those same shots in Norman, and you could argue he was a big reason why we were able to be successful in Norman.
Speaking of Wade Taylor, 3-game sample size now of not having him out there. Obviously, this is unique to you and the team and the program as a whole. What have you learned about you guys since he's not been out there?
I was trying to get in touch with the NCAA. You guys know I haven't used email in over a decade. So I was looking for some help on how to get in touch with the NCAA without email. Because I was going to see if we could apply for a waiver on how he can get those 3 games back next year. Because I'll be honest, I just absolutely adore Four as a person, and he's been incredible helping us. And I think our staff, as I've mentioned, has done a really good job of trying to disperse his talent and his responsibilities to others. Our guys have done a great job with that because they love Ford just as much. But I think we have done some good things, and you you would think in some ways, do you think that we would score more points without 4 on the road and at home? No. Did you think you would give up more points without 4 from a defensive standpoint? Absolutely not. You know what I mean? So we're going to see if that waiver goes through.
Even when Wade's
That was pretty funny, Travis. Like for somebody that's not funny.
It was good. You didn't chuckle.
Yeah, I thought my body language and my tone like made it seem not sarcastic.
It was good.
Olin didn't get it.
even when Wade has played, when he's not on the floor, it seems like you guys have been much better compared to previous seasons. Is there something different about just the makeup of the team, maybe how deep the team is with the guys you have off the bench?
Yeah, for sure. I think some of that. I think some of that is the awareness that everyone in the organization has on guys. You know, Saturday it was a quad 1A game. Hey guys, on a fast turnaround, you guys know tomorrow is a quad 1A game. Like they're aware that that was 2 of probably what will end up being 8 on the season. I think that can only come from depth, but mostly I think that it comes from their maturity as a group, that they're very aware of all of this. The things that Olin asked, like they know. And transparently, their world is a little bigger than the one that I'm currently living in. So I think they follow what you guys tweet and what's being said. Like, so some of that awareness is happening within the sphere that they function in. Some of the things that they tell me, and I'm like, oh, like you guys were talking about a top 10 matchup. Well, I didn't know. And it's not because I'm like weirdo and don't want to know. I just trying to do my best to be as prepared as possible. And I think our kids, they know what's going on.
Has Pharrel exceeded expectations? I know you are excited to get him. But
I don't even think I was just talking to him. He's a really good human being, and I just think he's starting to scratch what he can be. And the thing that I was talking to him about, Olin, is when you're talking to someone about your habits, about your intensity, the pace at which you operate, when you're talking to someone, they're like, yeah, I understand. But then when you have to join those habits, join that intensity, join that pace, when you're a prospect as talented as he is, and the pace and the intensity and the habits you've never participated in, that's a lot. And he has embraced it with a perfect attitude. He's embraced all of those things, the Lincoln Center, the boot camp, the training camp, the 2-a-days, the factory hours, how we do 2-day, how we do 1-day. Every day's a brand new. Like I shook his hand before the Kentucky game, and he's just, his smile's not as pretty as Zoo's, but it's close. And he goes, Coach, I'm so excited. And it's just like a third grader excited in a pure way. Shakes my hand after the game in Norman, and he was like, Coach, I've never had this much fun. And then I slept 31 minutes Wednesday night, but I only look at my phone at certain times, like you guys have heard me say. And his mom, who doesn't text, has sent a text that long talking about how much she appreciates what's going on with Gochi. And she's not talking, she doesn't even care about ball. But I think he's just embraced all parts of how we go about things. And I just literally was just telling him in practice, I think you're just now beginning to figure out how you can take all of these things and it'll make you even a better player than you currently are.
Seems like you guys have been able to, you think of Oklahoma, how well they shot the ball from 3, and Texas not shooting the ball well yourselves, but still winning by 20. And then, we talked about the free throws kind of within the range of variability, have very favorable, I guess, variances relative to some of those things. Would you attribute that to either the versatility of some of the guys, the experience, and not being faced by one area not going your way, or what would you kind of attribute to that?
There's probably a lot of factors. I do agree completely with what you said and how you worded it. I think the one part that's probably the needle mover in all of the other categories is 2 of 19, I think, from 3 against Texas. That's disappointing if you're one of the guys shooting and knocking the paint off the rim. Down 18 with 17 minutes to play in your first ever road game in Norman. There is the ability to go, it just didn't work tonight. I think we were down 15 with 10 and a half minutes to go on Saturday in the largest crowd ever at Reed Arena. And it makes you, from an emotional standpoint, want to try to do something you probably shouldn't or couldn't do. I think our guys have just kind of hung around. The belief they have in one another, the belief they have in what we're doing. And I think their spirit, which is an intangible, their spirit of togetherness, of fight, of belief, whatever that is, that would be what I would say has had more of an impact than all of the volatility. And there's going to be volatility tomorrow. There's going to be some 2 or 3 outlier stat tomorrow that is going to be talked about in post game and talked about when I see you guys on Friday. Like, it's just going to keep adding layers to the volatility. But I think the spirit and the fight and the togetherness and the dap and the hugs and the smiles and the eye contact and the body language, like, that's hard to find in 2025 anymore.
Is Seattle 3, is that an evolution of cover 2, or is it something completely different?
Thanks for asking. So now I'm going to give you something that you won't write. Do you write anymore, or you're doing TV?
I write.
Okay.
He does it all.
Versatile.
I don't know
Switchable.
the TV thing well, but
Yeah, but I did notice in football season when I watched TV, you had like one of those flowers in your lapel.
my mom gave it to me.
One of the fake flowers, you know, like a pin.
Yeah, my mom.
I was like, look at my guy. Well, you look good. So, Monty Kiffin, my opinion, rest in peace, the best defensive coordinator of all time. Period. In college, in the NFL, the best of all time. When he's with the Bucks, working for Coach Gruden, it was called Tampa 2. Okay, so when we developed this in year 3 in Blacksburg, we called it Cover 2, and you saw Cover 2 our first year. And it's basically where we're going to commit to cover the ball is the easiest way to say it. Okay, Coach Kiffin hires Gus Bradley from North Dakota State as quality control. Coach Bradley had never played Division I, coached Division I. And he leaves the defensive coordinator job at North Dakota State. They were winning a bunch of games just like they are now, to be the quality control guy for Coach Kiffin. You should Google how Coach Kiffin went about interviews and all of the most prominent coaches you know now that started. I know Sean McVay, Coach LaFleur, all of those guys, the smart guys that were together with Coach with the Commander Redskins back then, Shanahan. But the original group like that, Coach Kiffin started. So he hires Coach Gus. After 1 year, Coach Gus is the linebackers coach. 2 years with the Bucks. And then Pete Carroll hires Coach Gus at Seattle. And Tampa 2 became what Coach Gus ran. 4 years later, Coach Gus gets the job with the Jacksonville Jaguars. The shortest tenure ever of any person who didn't play or coach in the NFL. In 6 years, 6 years in the NFL, he became a head coach. Coach Gus got fired this week as the DC of the Colts, and he's driving to Lexington now to meet us. He and I are really good friends, and he's my favorite person in the world. And when we changed it and threw cover 2 away, we started a new defense, and Devin was saying, Coach, what are we going to call this one? And I said, we're going to call it Seattle 3. And he said, why? And I said all that I just said there. So Seattle 3 is what we've called it in honor of Coach Gus. I hope it works out real good tomorrow in Lexington.
When did y'all name it, implement it?
Yeah, we started Seattle 3 after the COVID season. Had some staff changes, huge roster changes, including Jaxson. That's when we signed Henry. That's when we signed all these guys that we're talking about now. And so going into year 3 was when we went to the NIT championship game, was our first year. Year 4, 1 and out. Year 5, lost to Houston in overtime. So this is the 4th season of doing Seattle 3.